Be a part of the vibrant online debate via Facebook and when you take a knife away from a child, give him a piece of wood instead. The words of a Kenyan proverb that bring us into this episode of the Jamaican Dadz podcast. I'm Dennis Brooks.
I'm Alan Campbell.
And I'm Garth Williams, and we are
Jamaican Dadz.
Of course, this program provides a functional forum to tackle many of the taboo topics which concern fatherhood and parenting. And we've got a really good show for you tonight. We are also live, which means we'll be taking your calls a little later on, which is good stuff.
Excited.
Yes, no, for real, man. I miss the callers. I love the callers.
Hey, what that proverb mean? I don't when Jamaican parents, so that probably means they take a knife and give piece of two before you know.
Give him something productive.
When you take an instrument of potential destruction, replace it with something of construction.
There you go.
That's how I interpret it.
Absolutely, you're spot on, my brother.
So when I know about two, okay, you know what? Let me leave it.
We know that pretty much anything can be used as a weapon.
Back in the day, like I really wanted a ratchet knife.
Yeah,
like back in the day, yeah, man, I wanted one. But like in my mother's house.
Yeah, no, that's not gonna work.
No, not in Miss Brooks.
Stop. Giving people ideas, man. I'm Miss Sharon Comfy. In our main discussion, it's oh Lord, Comfy with the ratchet. In our main discussion this evening, responsibly approaching sex education.
Hey,
yes, indeed.
Your topic, this
girl, boy. Let me tell you. But well, my topic now.
No, yes.
It's your topic in a little while. But before we get there, let's fire off with the opening salvo. In this week's opening salvo, gentlemen, we discuss, what role should parents play in the friends their children choose?
Wallop.
No. What role?
Wallop. Birds of a feather.
What role should parents play in the friends their children choose? And for those of you who are watching on the Jamaican Dadz YouTube and our Facebook page, hit us up in the comment section. Let us know what you think. What role parents should play in the friends their children choose. And also,
hi Paul Peart, hi Chantalie Brown, hi Martina Allen.
They are on ours, or are they on Nationwide's YouTube at the moment? We're
Nationwide.
All right. So same thing applies to those of you who are watching on Nationwide's YouTube.
They're having a whole conversation to themselves.
Yeah.
Hi, Chantalie.
What role should parents play in the friends their children choose? Both of you jump out.
Wallop. Don't play with him. He got cooties.
There's that in the beginning. The beginning, like in the early stages, you have to curate their friendships for them.
You think so?
Heavily, yes. I believe it. Fundamentally.
Why is it important?
Because their parents might be putting bad influence on that child, and I don't want a child come try to erase the work that I'm doing with my child.
How will you know that a parent is negatively influencing another child?
My picnic can have friend. I'm gonna know the friend and parents.
No, we're getting somewhere.
You're not gonna from one of them yard that you're not going to nobody yard.
Does it matter the age or stage of the child?
Yes, I'm saying as they get older, my influence or the parental influence wanes.
Part of the reason why, for example, when my children were in kindergarten, I ended up being the president of the Parent Teachers Association.
Looks like definitely a role you would do.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got that PTA president.
I went for that. I was like, I need to know everybody who is here.
I went to do registration and pick up package and ting, and I'm like, I see it from now. That PTA thing is gonna hit me. I could see it.
You got to go there.
Yeah, I won't even say what school because I don't want them to draw me in too early. But I'm like,
no man, you've got to go
I look
there.
around and I'm like,
I don't take no check, brother. And let me tell you what happened. You see, a lot of times you'll hear sometimes, well, Dennis may come across this more often than myself and Marlon, where people get into a spot of bother. They end up on the wrong side of the law, and you will hear say, boy, a bad influence. I'm a friend and company. And this and that. And
be careful with that, though, you know, because enough of the time of the picnic.
Right. Sometimes I'm the ringleader.
I should tell you.
What's going on? The fact that there is a ringleader and there are others who are involved in wrongs suggests to me that a parent really never did as much as they ought to have in terms of establishing an influence on their child. Because me didn't know a whole heap of people where they do not flicker wrong things.
Yeah, but me
not follow them. I'm not following them because of, in one case, well, on the one hand, fear of my parents and their reaction, and then there's the respect element of it, and just doing the right thing, you know. And I'm putting that in quotes, but doing the right thing when the moment is called upon, or when you're called upon in a moment, you know. So,
and this doesn't mean say go do no little wrongs. I mean, it's part of growing up.
There's direct and indirect role that you play,
right?
Because very early you are going to place them in particular contexts,
yes,
for them to have structured interaction that you are helping to manage. But as they get older, it becomes like they can almost feel your presence and know say, like me know, like it's true. I always talk about like that thing that, you know, you grew up in a church, that Holy Ghost thing there. But I know, oh, my mother didn't know everything.
Glory to God.
My mother didn't know everything.
Kill him, I'm a shutter. I'm a pusher. So I'm a Honda.
So I just had it in my head. Me not even a power that you there though.
Yeah.
Mommy, I gonna know.
Mommy, I gonna know, but Mommy, I gonna know.
Mommy, I gonna find out.
And it's not gonna nice when you find out either.
I just think that if you do a proper job in home, that's what you're saying.
Exactly.
It carries outside.
Exactly.
And it's not even just a case of fear. It's just a case of making your child knowing that, you know, how to navigate.
Yeah,
that's really
the
the
streets.
But in another way, like for instance, sleepovers, or you know, that is something that me not really believe in, a sense, and you pick me all about. And
you sound like a real countryman a while ago.
No, you know, and you know why? Because of the reports that I read every day. These eyes have been burned and scarred. Yep. I mean, it's always somebody who you trusted your child with, or an environment that you trusted your child with. I mean, I really like the overexposed picnic them who are gonna now overexpose my own.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna run them joke.
No, you can't.
So I believe it must. It is not if, it is must.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot for that bit of input, gentlemen. Again, let us know. Please share with us connect with us on social media at Jamaican Dadz. That's Instagram and Facebook, and the Jamaican Dadz on Twitter. When we return, it's going to be time for what role should parents play responsibly approaching sex education, and we will have Dr. Karen Carpenter with us. We'll be back after these messages. All right, it's time now for Men's Health in the Jamaican Dadz podcast. Of course, June is recognized as Men's Health Month. And as a result of that, the Ministry of Health and Wellness is encouraging us men to pay more attention to our health. We've taken a look at cardiovascular diseases. We've taken a look at a couple of other things. But this evening, we are just taking a quick glance at respiratory issues, respiratory diseases, right? Many respiratory diseases start with an innocent, quote unquote, smoker's cough. Over time, that cough can lead to life-threatening conditions such as lung cancer, emphysema.
I said nothing.
Or COPD. Do you know what COPD is, gentlemen?
Okay, yeah, I know what it is.
Yeah.
Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD. Going to talk about that one in depth in just a second. All these conditions interfere with your ability to breathe. Now, of course, say if you can't breathe, well, pretty much that's a wrap, guys. According to the American Lung Association, each year more men are diagnosed and develop lung cancer than in past years. African American men in particular have a higher risk of dying from the disease compared to other racial or ethnic groups. Wonder why that is. While exposure to occupational hazards like asbestos increases your risk, smoking remains the leading cause of lung cancer. If you have smoked for more than 30 years, a low-dose CT scan may be prudent to screen for lung cancer. All right. So we know we have whole heap of smokers in Jamaica, right? Some of us consume nicotine products. Others are a little more herbal in their inclination, right? Nonetheless, smoke is still smoke, and it's a challenge to your lungs. So you've got to be very careful, gentlemen. Someone say, "Yo, me no want cigarette or them thing." That's me. All right, you don't know herbs to me thing.
Straight weed.
Yeah, straight weed. No, brother. No, you want to watch the marijuana something there.
And the grabber,
the hot grabber something there. Still tobacco that. Right, so you have to pre them thing, the big man. Right, you might not feel it now. You understand? You might not feel it now, but later on in life, you may very well end up on the wrong side of that cigarette, on the wrong side of that spliff, on the wrong side of that chalice, the wrong side of that steamer, the wrong side of that vape, something there. You know what I mean? I read a lot. I'm from Westmoreland and I read a lot.
Well, the Westmoreland was in November.
Leave it. Shout out to the folks in Orange.
Understand? No, but for real, gentlemen, it is very important that we pay attention to our lung health, especially the thing that go already, right? Now, according to again the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention (CDC), COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, is the third leading cause of death in the U.S. I'm not quite sure the stats are here in Jamaica, but just know, it's supposed it's pretty strong too, right? It kills about 3 million people 3 million people worldwide each year. Nearly 16 million people in the US are hospitalized each year because of COPD. So gentlemen, watch on yourself. The main risk factor for COPD is smoking. It causes up to 90% of COPD deaths. People who smoke are 13 times more likely to die from COPD than those who never smoked. Long-term exposure to tobacco is dangerous. The longer you smoke and the more packs you smoke, the greater your risk is of developing the disease. Pipe smokers and cigar smokers are also at risk. So exposure to secondhand smoke also increases your risk. Secondhand smoke includes both the smoke from the burning tobacco and smoke inhaled by the person smoking. So yeah, got to be careful out there, especially like I remember when they were putting the ban on smoking in public spaces. Bartenders were of particular concern. At the time I was at Red Stripe, and we had reached out to our bartenders to say, ladies, mainly ladies, because it's most ladies that are in some of the bars that we used to service. Said, hey, ladies, you got to be careful, when you have these persons smoking around you. So be sure to follow the Ministry of Health. Then it was just the Ministry of Health, not the Ministry of Health and Wellness. Follow their rules as it relates to smoking indoors. So watch on yourself out there. All right. Air pollution is also a principal risk factor for COPD, but it isn't the only one. Indoor and outdoor pollutants can cause the condition. So you have to just be very cautious of where you are. Clean your fans, folks. Clean your fans.
Yo,
Your
now
standing
you
fan, your
clean,
ceiling fan, your wall fan, your every fan.
And you know, it's extra cold when you're done just clean.
All right, just breezy, brother. Oh gosh, man. Oh gosh. Right? Clean your ACs, your AC filters. All right.
Service your air conditioner.
Right.
It needs
Service
to be
your cars as well.
Yeah,
Make
the
sure
cabin filters.
all right. Atio, as Dennis always say. All right. So please, folks, take good care. Gentlemen, brethren, right? Prevention better than cure. Always. All right. So take care of your health. That was Men's Health.
Men's Health was brought to you by the Minister of Health and Wellness. Healthy people, healthy environment.
Thanks for staying with us here on the Jamaican Dadz podcast. We are now moving into the meat of the matter. It is a very important topic. I think it's a topic that fathers need to learn to have.
Yep.
We need
Parents, actually.
Yeah, I know, but it
fathers,
is often something that the fathers don't want to touch. Yo,
Yeah.
me not deal with this, you know.
Or
Or we take a very less than intelligent approach to dealing with it if we have to deal with it. But it
Facts.
is something that we need the skills and the information to deal with it properly. And that is
this properly.
responsibly approaching sex education. Does it even, well, we have joining us the head of the Department of Gender and Development Studies. Is it Gender and Development Studies?
We're about to be corrected.
Yes, I feel a correction coming. She is a clinical sexologist, and she was my favorite lecturer at the University
And
of the
she's
West
a
Indies.
veteran of the show.
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
she's joined us a couple
family.
of times before.
Dr. Karen Carpenter, welcome to the program. How you doing?
Doc?
I'm laughing at the notion that I have to correct you.
Do you though?
Do you have to correct us? Or
It's Gender and Development Studies, isn't it?
Right. I think you got it right.
Yay.
Institute for Gender and Development Studies at the Mona unit, because there are 4 units,
True.
right? So we're the Mona unit. And yes, Dennis was one of my favorite students.
Hey! Big up yourself,
Hey.
Dennis.
And you know why I believe you, Doc? Because you say it all the while and you're always just genuinely saying it. It's not like, you know, all right, let me
True.
go
I
I
like feel
remember
nice.
Dennis so well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has gray hair now.
I
And
know.
And a
I
Tom
remember
Selleck mustache.
And a baby, and a beautiful, beautiful baby.
Yes.
But Doc, it's a topic that is important to, of course, it's important to children and it's important to us as parents. But the first question that I have is, when do you start if you're going to approach it responsibly?
Okay, so one of the things is that we tend to shorten the term to sex education instead of sexuality education, right? And when most people hear the word sex, they think of intercourse. And we're not thinking about intercourse education, which is what a lot of parents are scared about. We're talking about sexuality education, right? So all of what makes us sexual beings. So when do we start? We start as soon as that child is able to communicate and understand. And we start by the time that they're toddlers, and we start to help them to understand good touch, bad touch, where they can be touched, where they shouldn't be touched. Because by the time the child is 2, they have quite a large expressive vocabulary. And expressive there means what they can say, and they're learning words rapidly. Yes, it's the most explosive period in our life. We learn so much in those early years. 0 to 7 is the most learning we're going to do in our entire life. We learn to walk, we learn to crawl, we learn to jump, skip, think, conjecture. We learn so much. Yeah? So it's a great period of what we call plasticity, for you to begin to help the child to understand. No one touches me where my swimsuit is. No one touches me where my underwear is. Yes.
So what I hear you saying, though, Doc, is it is a continuous conversation. It's not a one-off conversation.
Absolutely, because sexuality is continuous.
And evolving.
So when we talk about the communicative parts of it, the communicative skill, we have to be able to get that back and forth communication with the child. And you know, when you have your baby and the baby's eating and spilling the food, we begin even then saying, no, right? And we do that telegraphic speech. Cup, table. Cup on the table, right? And then the baby just spills everything out of the cup again. It's fun to see your expression, right? So we start from very early teaching the very rudiments of just life skills. And sexuality education is a life skill.
How important is it, Doc, for fathers to be a part of that conversation? Because sometimes we tend to shy away from
or we allocate it to the
mother.
No, to the based on gender. So man, you deal with the boy, you deal with the girl.
And let me suggest to you that the communicative part of it is when a child starts being able to understand and communicate with us. But there's another part of it, which is the modeling of behavior. The minute that child begins to watch your actions and ape your actions, follow your actions, they're learning about the world. And the way you deal with your own sexuality will influence the way your child deals with the sexuality. Is it something hidden that's done in dark corners, away from sight, and we speak in hushed tones? I don't think we honestly realize what we're doing to kids when we teach them that message, because then when somebody who is a pedophile comes along, they're going to do it in dark corners, they're going to hide, they're going to speak in hushed tones, and they're going to make it a secret. I don't think dads or moms have a greater responsibility. I think parents have a responsibility to model the kinds of behaviors they want to see in their kids. You cannot tell a child to tell you the truth and you lie every day. You can't tell a child to be open about what's happening with them and you're lying about what's happening with you.
Right.
So we have to learn to normalize sexuality as part of human development.
So let's break it down into some more granular details, because, for instance, Marlon and I have 2-year-olds, and they are developing a consciousness of their body.
And I wanted to speak about that because I've just I've just taught him about rolling back and washing and so forth, and we're at that stage. And for us now, it's this big game now at this point. But then I literally the other morning I was like, I'm worried that if ever it's this game, it becomes this if somebody else go on top, because he thinks it's this
context. Game. So you have to put it in a context.
Oh, it's only doing.
I've had boys and girls, so I have both sexes, right? And one of the things that we try to encourage is that when you're bathing the child, whoever is going to do the bathing, the caregiver, emphasizes that only mommy or daddy or nana or whoever is doing the caregiving, only those persons can wash you hair, can touch you hair. And touching is for washing. The touching is functional.
Yes.
Yes? So the child becomes accustomed to a touch that is for hygiene.
Right.
And not for other things. Now, I can tell you, I remember when my son was quite young, because his sister is older than he is. And she used to go into he had one of those crib beds. It's really a bed with guardrails. And he was in there experimenting with himself. And she walked into his room and she was scandalized. And she must have been about
or was it traumatized?
She was scandalized, not traumatized. Because they grew up around me, they can't be traumatized. And she was shouting from upstairs. She's like, Mommy, he's playing with himself. And I said, well, where is he? He's in his room. I said, where are you? I'm in my room, but I was going in there. I said, is he playing with you? No. Offended, right? No. I said, okay. So he's playing with himself. He's in his room. Is he in his crib? Yes. And he was only about 2. I said, well, why don't you go back to your room and leave him alone? I'm happy with that. Right? These are the same 2 kids who, when they became adolescents, and they started to have their secondary sex characteristics, which means your breasts grow, you have hair, the penis enlarges, the scrotum enlarges, your voice starts to deepen and crack. And she walks in on a bathroom that is shared, walks in on him. And she goes, mommy, he has hair on his penis. I said, and how old is he? 16. I said, so it's appropriate, isn't it?
Listen,
leave him alone. Yeah. Get out of the bathroom if you're that offended.
Yeah. There's so much more for us to discuss, and we're going to do that right after these messages. You're tuned into the Jamaican Dadz podcast, responsibly approaching sexuality education with Dr. Karen Carpenter.
With us here on the Jamaican Dadz podcast, we are having a conversation about responsibly approaching sexuality education. Our guest is clinical sexologist Dr. Karen Carpenter. Christina 23100 says, my parents never allowed me to sleep over at anyone's house. Everybody else to me was having fun and I was missing out. My first time was about 15 and I had to advocate hard. Chantalie says Jamaican parents don't talk to their children about sex. And Tanya says, I taught my daughter at age 4 and it continues up to this day. Camilla says, I taught my daughter this as well. Only mommy can touch you there.
Absolutely. We'll open the lines as well if you have any questions or comments, actually, that about your experience, either teaching or from your parents about sex education. The numbers are
630-9371 to 4 618-8255.
That's right. So again, 630.
I can only remember the numbers when I'm sitting in this chair.
Are you serious?
Like if I'm outside of the studio, like I'm listening as a listener and I'm trying, I need to call the show.
Can't remember the number. Get a tattoo. 630-9372-471-4 or 618-8255. Of course, the 876 area code. Doc.
Doc, here's a question. Tanya is asking: is it wrong to share a shower with your child?
Wrong which part?
Okay. Wrong is not something that psychologists often speak to, wrong or right.
Mm-hmm.
There's wrong for you, right for you, and then there's harmful. Things can be harmful or not harmful, right? Now, it depends on the age of the child. It depends on how long it goes on for. And I literally say to parents who are showering with their kids, is the child able to shower themselves?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when the child is able to wash themselves properly, if it's a male child, they're able to pull back the foreskin, they're able to wash around the corona, and also you're teaching them those words and you're telling them why they need to wash it, then you could stop showering with the child and you could supervise the child showering themselves. So it's gradually, and then you can allow the child to shower or bath themselves because you might be setting a bath for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
With little girls, you show them how to wash the inside of the lips, you show them how to wash the creases, and little by little, they learn to do it themselves. When the child is able to do it for themselves, I think we're now teaching a lesson about privacy.
Mm-hmm.
And children need privacy too.
True.
Yeah? So the door can be open, you can be proximate, you can be nearby, you can pop in, check in on a child if they're doing okay. And that's usually the school age child.
Mm-hmm.
So that child is usually about 5, not our nursery school and basic school child. But by the time they're 5 or so, they're able to begin to wash themselves properly. By the time they're 7, certainly. Yeah?
All right.
So I would say it depends on the age and the intent. And we must also be very careful as well that anything that looks like grooming a child is going to be problematic.
Thank you very much. We have a caller on the line. Dwayne, good evening.
Good evening. Hey, Dwayne.
I said, good evening, sir. How are you?
We're good. We're good. What's on your mind?
Yes, what's on my mind? I hear asking the question.
Which one of the questions?
The question, the point that you're talking about, children, is this a question? I could make a point.
Which point about children?
Oh, you're talking about children. Okay, you're talking about if adults are the parents should be the child. Or about the child.
Right.
Okay, in Leviticus chapter 18, I think the Bible makes it clear that what the doctor was saying a while ago was so true. I think that no adult should be with the children. I think that there's a role that both the men and the women have to play as it relates to see that their children are properly bathed and things like that. But I don't think that way that the male and female should be with their children. Because I recognize that when you do so, I remember when you see your parents, like for instance, you will take I remember when I was small, you will take some feather, some hair, put in your places, or you put in your arm, whatever, because you see that happening as it relates to your mom or your dad. Mm-hmm. And it tends to make your children not living out your childhood.
Oh, so you think that they try to be adults, overexposed? But I think, I think what.
All right, Dwayne, thanks very much. Let's hear your perspective, Doc.
I wasn't hearing all of what Dwayne was saying. Was he saying that you should not, because a child will see the hair on your body and want to have hair on their body too?
Yeah, it was along that line, because he was saying like when he was growing up, some kids would probably take like feathers or other types of material to put in their armpits and so on to mimic their parents.
I can appreciate that may have happened. I suspect that happened in households where children were not taught about the human body.
Right.
They were not taught that when they get older, their body would look different. That the same hair that my daughter was scandalized by when her brother had it. Mm-hmm. And I said to her, well, how old is he? And she said 16. Then it's age appropriate. Mm-hmm. Yes? Mm-hmm. And I think we have to normalize some natural parts of human development. Yeah? Which is why I say, as a child gets old enough to bathe themselves, we now have to consider their privacy. Mm-hmm. And we have to consider the appropriateness of us being in that context with them, because it also makes it permissible for others.
Right. I remember too when you mentioned made that point, Doc, and we're talking about, for example, bathing with children. My son was completely fascinated with watching me urinate. Like
I was gonna say,
especially when he was being potty trained.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So he wanted, like, he'd knock on the bathroom door, because we train him to knock rather than just push and come in. Sometimes
exactly.
They don't always follow that rule, but hey,
right? Needs to learn that.
But he would know that I'm in there. He'd knock, and then I'd go, I'm inside. I'm in the Lunic, and then he goes, okay, and he just pushes the door. I'm like, all right.
He wants to come and see.
Yeah, and then he just stands there. I'm going, and he just looks. I'm like, Nick, Daddy is urinating now, so you need to get out. And he's like, okay, and he just stood and he just stared.
He's not going anywhere because he's fascinated.
Yeah,
I was gonna ask that same question though, because and I'm trying to navigate appropriateness, and so like Jackson just storms into the bathroom and he just and he just points and he said, "Peenie." And I'm like, right? But then he wants to watch. But then I noticed that he'll hear if he's outside and he hears urinating taking place, and he storms in. He bolts in.
They hear you pee outside. I'm sorry.
No, like he's in the living room. He's in the living room. He hears me in my bathroom, and he storms in. And I'm just like, okay, but like I'm like, don't touch. You're not supposed to touch, and nobody's supposed to touch you.
Right.
I mean, he can't properly understand, but I keep saying it.
He'll get
like,
it soon.
Lord, please, I want him to get this.
That's a good lesson. So one of the things I would say to Jackson is, do you want to pee? And he'll probably say yes, but it's not true, right?
Right.
He'll probably say yes. He can get his little potty.
Right.
And he can pretend to pee while you're peeing. And that's good modeling. And when you say to him, don't touch, no one is to touch your penis. You don't touch daddy's, and daddy doesn't touch yours unless you're bathing.
Right.
That's a teachable moment right there.
Right.
And he's going to pretend to pee. He's not going to pee. When you shake, he's going to shake vigorously.
Right.
And there's nothing to shake, and he's going to feel like a big boy.
Which means you keep the wipes nearby. You're listening.
And he probably isn't going to pee at all.
Of course. You're
to see what it is that he will become.
Absolutely.
And that's perfectly natural.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick break. You're tuned into the Jamaican Dadz podcast. Use the hashtag Jamaican Dadz but that's with a Z, to participate in the conversation with Dr. Karen Carpenter, responsibly approaching sexuality education. We'll be right back.
Thanks for staying with us here on the Jamaican Dadz podcast. We are having a conversation with Dr. Karen Carpenter about responsibly approaching sexuality education in the home, the role of dad, and giving us some tips, giving us some skills, some information that we need.
So, Doc, we started the conversation by essentially saying that it is a continuous conversation based on the developmental stage of the children, right? We looked. You mentioned, of course, that between ages 1 and 7, that's when you'll do the most learning, because obviously you just come out of the box, right? Yeah, blank slate being filled. How do you now move forward? Because I think one of the things that Dwayne was kind of hinting at is exposure and overexposure, and with all these various types of media and not being over sexualizing our children, and we realize too that a lot of them are engaging in sexual activity at an earlier phase of life. how do parents navigate this space to ensure that
Yeah, one of the things that I'm careful about is definition. So this notion that we're over sexualizing our children, I'm not sure that I would use the term sexualizing, but that's me being very technical.
Mm-hmm.
I would say we're over eroticizing our children.
Okay, I can appreciate that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we have to have them have a sense of their sexuality. And if it were sexuality that we were teaching them through media, it wouldn't be a bad thing. But because we're over eroticizing the child, they haven't yet got into their sexual self. They haven't developed properly. They've not yet experienced themselves as a sexual being. And we want them now to be an erotic being. Yes? Which is clearly adult business. Right. Yes.
I put something to you that was a concern to me that was an issue that was brought to my attention. Now, let's say we have a student in grade 3, 8 years old, and because of all of this time being spent on the tablet now, because of online school.
Yes, and I've had those instances.
So you now have a whole lot more time being spent on devices. Mother decides to fast and go look in browser history of this child and finds one slew of pornography. And not just pornography, gay pornography.
Okay.
Now, and again, this is an 8-year-old. And of course she beat him. She would have beat him for the she would have beat him for the pornography anyway. But especially because it's gay pornography, she beat him all the more. And my thing was, Mommy, for me, my concern is at that age, boys will have they're going through a particular stage of sexual evolution anyway. I liked girls when I was in grade 3. I remember Melissa Williams. But my thing is, I did not have an awareness, I think, of pornography. That speaks to almost an invasion of that child's innocence. And that is something that needs to be explored, because 8-year-olds, I don't think on their own, without being exposed to it, are going to learn how to search pornography.
Right.
So, well, I tell you, it's quite easy for pornography to come up at all. I mean, we could look for nationwide and find something that's spread nationwide, and it's pornography. It's amazing the titles that they're giving to pornographic stuff. So you tend to click innocently on it the first time if you don't know what it is, and then your curiosity is piqued and you want to look again. So now you start searching for it. Beating the child, clearly, no. Not just because he's not supposed to hit somebody smaller than you, right? If the child was your size, you wouldn't beat them.
True. Well,
think about it.
Right.
Yeah. If a woman was a man's size, he wouldn't hit her.
Unlikely.
Or he'd hit her and wait for the punch.
Right.
Right? Okay. So the first thing is that we don't hit people who are smaller than us. That's a no-no. Right? But secondly, what you've taught the child is that you've eroticized it even further. Because now it's become taboo. Now it's that thing that the child must sneak and look at, because you punish them for something that for them may have been just curiosity. They're not quite sure why they're looking.
So what should have been the approach, Doc?
Well, textbook approach. Textbook approach would say, as disturbing as it is for you, when you gather your composure, you go back to the child and you say to them, tell me about the pictures that you've been seeing.
You said gather your composure first.
Yes. Yeah, because most parents are going to be shocked by it. Most parents
don't respond same time.
No, don't respond until you know what you're going to say. It's pointless. Yeah? And I understand it's shocking for a parent. Compose yourself, drink a glass of water, go to the kitchen and come back, whatever, walk outside and say to the child, tell me about what you're looking at. Now, one of the things that I'm going to hope for that child to do is to be honest. Once a child starts hiding things, who have a problem.
Worries, yeah.
Because they've learned subterfuge, right?
Yes.
And so we have to take a more serious approach when they start hiding. But if the child is bucking it up, as we say in Jamaica, the child is more likely to say, well, it was nastiness or it was this because they want your approval, eh?
Yes.
Even the child who's bad wants your approval. And they're going to explain it in a way that they think is acceptable to you. Then you can say to them why it is not a good idea to be on these sites, why it is not a good idea to be looking at these things. And you want to keep that conversation open so you can explore, is this of interest to this child? Is this making the child feel aroused? Is this something that was just curious? We even watch a train crash, you know. We watch horrible incidents as much as we watch things that are erotic. Yes? So the child could be watching because they're like puzzled. Help them to understand it.
Right.
I have a question here from someone tuning in, and she says that her daughter, age 7, is now at the stage where she's curious about the male body. She wants to know about the male body and how it works. How do I initiate the conversation? Should dad be involved? Should it be a mother-daughter lesson?
I think dad should be involved. I don't think it should be show and tell. Dad does not have to show her anything on his body.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, let's not do the show and tell here. That's frightening for a small child. You're an adult after all. Remember, you don't hit anybody smaller than you. Well, you don't expose your penis to anybody smaller than you, right?
Yeah.
So I think that we have to find some, even online, body images that are age appropriate. Ask the child what they want to know. My policies answer the question asked. Sometimes adults go into one long explanation, the child not asking you that. The child just have a simple question. Where do cute babies come from? Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. When the daddy has the baby, where does the baby come from? Daddies do not have babies. So why you need a daddy for the baby? Or whatever it is that they want to ask. Yes? Answer the question asked and leave the door open. The child will come back and ask you another question.
Aye.
I remember you see, I have lots of stories because I have 3 kids, right? They're all big. I remember my eldest daughter, my cousin was pregnant. She was about to have the child in another week or 2. So we were all excited and we're all talking about the delivery and what have you. But at home, I only had kittens. The cat had kittens. And she says to me as we were driving to school in the morning, she says, Mommy, when is Auntie going to have her kittens?
Oh, well, I mean.
Yes?
Yeah.
Because to her, if you're pregnant, it must be kittens.
Mm-hmm.
But she's never experienced an adult having a baby. Yeah. So that's a teachable moment.
Yeah.
She's not going to have kittens. You answer the questions as they become exhausted and bored with you. And they stop asking questions. And they'll come back when they need more information.
Yeah, one of the things I want to it's a little bit of a departure from the immediate conversation, but somewhat related. Because do you believe if, for example, parenting was taught in schools and so on, then it would prepare us better in adulthood to responsibly approach sexuality education and kind of taking our children on that continuous conversation about their bodies and how it works and so on?
I think what we have to teach in school is sexuality education. We have to teach comprehensive sexuality education. And I'm going to go back to 2 things. One, that child with the tablet who was exposed to the pornography. Once you've had that conversation with the child, you need to make a little contract. And that little contract is going to say, if you're looking at anything and you have to shut it off when I walk in the room, you shouldn't be looking at it. And that was my rule with my children, and they're grown now. But anything that they were watching, if I walked in the room and you had to turn it off, you shouldn't have been watching it in the first place.
Yeah.
So when they got to be teenagers and they wanted to, push the boundaries, they'd be watching something that they thought would embarrass me, poor souls. I would walk into the room and they'd continue watching it, and they'd be very blasé because you know how teenagers are.
Oh, swear
to God. Well, it's just so and so and so and so. And I'd say, really, what's your interest in that? Tell me about that. And they'd be shocked. So then the conversation would start. I was like, okay, well, if you feel comfortable talking to me about it while you're watching it, that's the rule.
Right.
Well, sometimes I didn't agree with what they were watching, but that was the rule they had since they were children.
Mm.
So I can't suddenly flip the rule on them now.
Yeah, all of a sudden.
When they say how blasé I am about it, they just leave it alone. All right. Hey. Comprehensive sexuality education. When these kids are learning about their bodies, they also are supposed to be learning about love.
Aye.
They're supposed to be learning about good touch, bad touch. Mm-hmm. They're supposed to be learning about why mommy and daddy kiss differently from how they kiss us.
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they learn about expressions of love, they will understand that some expressions of love are for a couple. Mommy doesn't kiss her friends. She doesn't kiss Uncle Tom the way she kisses daddy.
Oh,
because
Uncle
mommy
Joe.
and daddy have a different type of love
Right.
Mm-hmm.
from mommy and Uncle Tom. We hope.
We hope. Hey, Doc, we have to. Doc, boy.
You notice I picked a non-Jamaican name. So
Yeah, I realize. Unfortunately.
So, these are the little things that we have to teach them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because a child doesn't know that.
Right.
And a child could be influenced by someone else to French kiss.
Mm-hmm.
But if you explain to them that is something that's reserved for mommy and daddy, and you'll see that grandma and grandpa also do it, or your big sister and their boyfriend or whatever. When you are the child and I'm the parent, we don't kiss like that.
Absolutely.
We kiss on the cheek, we kiss on the forehead.
Right.
That's not our kind of love.
Yeah.
Our love is a lasting love. It's a big love.
Absolutely.
You understand me? You reinforce these things.
Doc, we're gonna have to stop it right there. Unfortunately, we wish we had another hour, but we will continue and follow up with you. We really appreciate your time and all the information that you
really appreciate it.
Good. That was Dr.
And enjoy those wonderful children of yours.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Good. So that was Dr. Karen Carpenter. She's the head of the MONA
unit
of the Institute of Gender and Development Studies. There you go. All right. We're out of here for this week, folks. We're back next week, Thursday. So please, until then, take care of each other and yourselves. Bye-bye. Bye.